All right, this is Dolores Cannon again. I think this show is going to be aired Thanksgiving weekend. And by that time, I will have just returned from Dubai in the Middle East. So today, if I sound a little scattered, it's because this is the day that I'm leaving when they're recording this. I'll be leaving in a few hours to the airport. And you know what that's like. You're trying to get all your things together, especially when you were going to be gone so far and you're going to be gone. I'll be gone for about 10 days, and I'll be back here Thanksgiving weekend. But, of course, it'll be quite a difference over there. It's going to be the desert. And they said even where I'm going to be doing the lecture is going to be in a big courtyard. It'll be out in the desert. And so it'll be interesting. When I get back, I can talk about it and tell everybody everything. All I know so far is that there is strict censorship because it is a Muslim country. And in order to get my books into that country, they have to go through our distributor we have over in Europe, had to send copies of some of the books to the censor board so that they could review the books and make sure that they were all right to bring into the country. And I was told there's some things I'm not going to be able to lecture about over there because, you know, I have 13 books in print, so all of them will not be there for the time that I'm there. And there's certain things, definitely the Jesus material is definitely taboo. I can't talk about any of that, even though my books are not really what you would consider religious. That's what they're worried about because, you know, later on I'll be talking about this as we go through all these different talks, but my books on Jesus are about the missing years and the parts that are not in the Bible and what he was really like, as I found with my work with regression. So it's not exactly the same thing, but I don't want to upset anybody over there, and I don't want to get anybody angry. I definitely don't want to be thrown out of the country. So it'll be probably a story to tell when I get back. But they said when I do the lectures, most of the people that are coming, I think, are what they call the expatriates. They are the ones from used to be a British colony, and some of the ones that are the British state over there. And they told me they are starving for information, and so that's mostly what I'll be talking to. And I think in the private lectures I can be a little more open, but I just have to be careful. But you said they also are not too keen about UFOs and ETs, so that's another subject I probably won't be able to talk about over there. But maybe in the private groups if they want to ask questions or something. But otherwise, they assured me that it's perfectly safe. You know, after the bombing in Jordan, that's a little close. But they said this is a neutral country. Dubai is a neutral country. It's the United Arab Emirates, and that way it is neutral from that part of the world, and it's not taking any sides. So that could be different. But, you know, we never know when you go to that part of the world. But it'll be a first for me, and we'll see what happens. So by the time this airs, I will be back into the country, and the next week I will go live. And then we'll be able to have call-ins, and I can talk about a lot of different things that have happened. But it's really amazing when I think about this, and I travel all over the world, get to see so many different things, and to me it's become ordinary now. But when I think about it, I really am touching every continent in the world, and this is the first time to be on the African continent. So maybe there's a point to that. My information has to be everywhere. They told me that once I speak over there in Dubai, the people who are bringing in the books said it will open up the whole Middle Eastern market. So I don't know where I'm going to be by this time next year. My books are already being translated into Chinese, and as I said earlier, they're in Russian, so I'll be going back to there in March. Okay, but let's get back to some of the information that I was talking about, continuation from the last show. Because once I go into the live ones, then I want to focus on the subjects of the books and let people call in and ask questions. And with so many different topics, this could go on for quite a while. But last week I was talking about some of the causes of problems and how they can be traced back to past lives. And one, I was talking about the cause of deep sadness, which a lot of people have. And I went through the ones where they had watched the destruction of their planet and the one that was supposed to be a twin. There wasn't time to go into one other one that a woman came to me, and she had extreme sadness, depression. There was a repeatable pattern in her life of abandonment, rejection. She called herself the throwaway child, the feeling of being unworthy, the fear of what? She didn't know what it was. But she was abandoned at birth and was raised in an orphanage. She went through some bad marriages, always having trouble with her jobs, is constantly being fired. It's like she said, the pattern, repeatable pattern of abandonment, rejection, and the throwaway, being unworthy. And when she came to me, she had thoughts of suicide. I get several people who tell me that they are really wanting to commit suicide, and they want me to, I'm like their last hope. Now, that puts a lot of responsibility on me, and I really don't like to be put in a position like that. But I certainly do as much as I can to try to help these people. But I had one woman that came to me that said she was so unhappy at her job that she was going to kill herself. She was wanting to commit suicide. She hated her job so much. I said, no job is worth that. You seem like there's always something you can do to get out of a situation like that. It's not as bad as some situations people find themselves in. But to her, apparently, it was bad enough that she wanted out. Well, the woman who came to me, though, that had this extreme sadness and the feeling of abandonment and rejection, she was entertaining the thoughts of suicide. She'd already tried it a few times. She just thought her life was no longer worth living. When we took her back, it was a very strange regression, and I really had to work at it to get it all straightened out. She went back to a lifetime where she found herself running down the streets of this city. It was way, way back in ancient times, but she was running down the streets of this city carrying her baby, and all the other people were running and screaming also because there was an army of men on horseback were chasing everybody down the streets with swords and, parts of the wars that have gone on down through time, eternal. Everybody, it's always a man, but, they're always having these wars. And so there was something happening in the city, and they were chasing the people, killing everyone they found. Everybody was running and screaming to get away from the men on horseback. So as she ran, she was trying to find a place where she would be safe among the chaos that was happening. So she thought the baby crying might attract attention. She put it down inside of a doorway, and then she ran across the street and was hiding inside a building. She thought, well, surely they wouldn't hurt a baby. Well, she was mistaken, because as the soldiers came down the streets on the horseback, they killed the baby. And she was so distraught that by the time they found her, raped her, and killed her, she didn't even care, because she was just so distraught about seeing her baby die. And she thought she had abandoned it. She had left it to be killed, and it was her fault that it had died. And so even when she crossed over to the spirit side, and I was talking to her on that side, she was still distraught, thinking that what a horrible thing she had done by leaving the baby to be killed. This is part of why she brought this guilt into this life and was punishing herself all through this life by the same thing, the feeling of abandonment and the pattern she had set up for herself. Because found this whenever you do try to program your life. You try to put in situations that will repay karma and things that you think need to be repaid. So she had made these plans on coming into the life about being adopted and abandoned at birth, but it was all following this pattern of how she felt by abandoning her baby. And she was trying to punish herself all the way into this life. So when I had her on the spirit side of that life, I had to do a lot of talking to her, trying to make her see it wasn't her fault. Even if she had not left the baby in the doorway, they would have probably both been killed anyway if she had stayed with the baby, because that was the way it was in these times, that they would have killed everyone anyway. So I had to convince her, trying to, that by staying with the baby, it wouldn't have done any good. She would have still both been killed. So this is where the therapy comes in, is working with the subconscious to understand all of this. The subconscious was willing, but the person was not. She was so mired in this feeling of guilt. And the more I kept talking to her, I said, can you forgive the men who killed the baby and killed you? She said, oh yeah, they were just doing their man thing. She could understand that. But it was different. I said, well, if you can forgive them, can you forgive yourself? She said, no, I can't. I can never forgive myself for abandoning the baby. So I really had my work cut out for me. And I worked with her for quite a while to relieve that feeling, to where she could finally forgive herself, understand it wouldn't have made any difference, and allow that situation to go. So she would stop carrying that feeling of guilt and punishment around with her and release it. But that was one case. It did work, but it does take a lot of work on my part. But you can see how these past lives can bring these feelings forward to where even on the conscious level, they don't understand what is happening. But once you realize it has nothing to do with this life, but it has everything to do with another life, then it begins to fall into place. But there are just so many of these cases that I've had. I don't know if I talked about this one, but it was a woman that came to me in London who had eczema. They call it eczema, I think we call it eczema, all over her body. The only place she didn't have it was on her face, because she had found some kind of a cream that she could put on her face so that it wouldn't be there. But she was a beautiful girl, and she was attending the College of Psychic Studies in London. I speak there several times, and I'll be speaking there again in March when I go over to London. It's where they have metaphysical courses. And just like a college, you can graduate with degrees. She was taking courses to really become involved with metaphysics